Hi everyone, this is Bree Luna with Reading Rev, and today we're going to tackle understanding Lexile levels.
Lexile levels, often referred to as Lexile measures, are a standardized method for measuring both a reader's ability and the difficulty of a text. This system, called the Lexile framework, was created by a company called Metametrics. Lexile measures are widely used in schools to help teachers, parents, and students understand and match reading materials to an individual student's reading ability. For decades, we've used several different leveling tools to try to match a child's reading level with appropriate text. The problem with these levels is that there was no systematic or formulaic way to determine what made a text a C or a D or a DRA 14. I remember being confused about this when I went from 5th grade down to 2nd. I tried to research and figure out exactly what these leveling systems meant and how they were determined. The problem was, no one could really explain it. Since we've moved away from balanced literacy and leveled readers and the programs that had these leveling codes, we need a system to talk about students' reading ability and text complexity. However, we need to understand the research behind it so we know the pros and cons and can make educated decisions for our students. Lexile measures are expressed as a number followed by the letter L. These numbers range from below 0 for emergent readers to 1700 for advanced readers. This is a system that can guide teachers in selecting suitable text for students. However, it should not be the single defining factor. Let's dive in and talk about the what, the how, the good, and the bad of the Lexile framework. The Lexile framework operates on two key components, the reader measure and the text measure. The reader measure is a score that represents a student's reading ability. It is determined by administering a standardized reading test. There are currently over 65 assessments that can be given to determine a student's Lexile level. MAP Growth Reading, or NWEA, STAR Reading Test, DIBELS Next, iReady, and Achieve 3000 are just a few. The score is based on how well a student can understand and process text at varying difficulties. The second measure is the text measure. This score indicates the complexity of a text. A text Lexile level is calculated using a proprietary formula that considers factors such as word fluency and sentence length. These elements are crucial because research shows they are significant indicators of text complexity. A higher Lexile level indicates a more challenging text. The Lexile framework measures the reader's ability and the text difficulty on the same scale. A Lexile level, or Lexile measure, reflects a student's reading ability on a scale and is attained through an analysis of a student's ability to read and comprehend text. While each of the standardized assessments vary, here's how reading level is generally calculated. Number 1, vocabulary knowledge. The student's understanding of word meanings in context is assessed. This includes recognizing high-frequency words, less common words, and academic words. Number 2, sentence comprehension. This involves understanding sentence structure and how meaning is conveyed through grammar and syntax. Number 3, text complexity. Students are assessed on their ability to understand text with increasing complexity, which could include longer, more complex sentences and text with higher level vocabulary and deeper themes. Number 4, reading comprehension. Students answer questions that test their understanding of main idea, details, inferences, and the themes of a passage. The focus is on how well they grasp literal meanings and infer deeper meanings from text. And finally, number 5, reading fluency. While not directly linked to Lexile levels, fluency in decoding and processing texts efficiently can impact comprehension scores, indirectly affecting the Lexile measure. Some other specific items that are assessed is word recognition and decoding skills, literal comprehension, inferential comprehension, syntactic understanding, and thematic understanding. Each assessment uses different types of questions and algorithms. but all ultimately aim to measure how well a student can comprehend text of various complexities. The results are then translated into a Lexile score, which helps educators determine what level of text the student can successfully read. We can use norms to determine if a child's reading ability is on track to meet college norms, and usually this is expressed as percentiles. In education, a percentile is a measure of where students are in relation to their peers. Now let's talk about the text Lexile levels. Lexile levels are grounded in research that links cognitive processing with text complexity. The development of Lexile framework was based on decades of reading research that examined how students interact with text and how various linguistic features contribute to text difficulty. The two factors used to determine the text Lexile level are word frequency and sentence length. Let's talk about word frequency. The Lexile system assesses how often words appear in written language. High frequency words like the, ball, because, mother are easier for students to understand, while low frequency words like photosynthesis, continental, justification are obviously more challenging. The frequency with which words appear across a large corpus of text is an indicator of how familiar a student is likely to be with those words. The second is sentence length. Longer sentences are typically more complex and require more cognitive effort to comprehend. They often contain multiple clauses, more advanced punctuation, and sophisticated syntax, making them harder for students to process. We now have the student's Lexile score, and we understand the text's Lexile level. How do we apply this to our classroom and instruction? Here's how teachers can effectively use Lexile measures. First, we can match text with readers. The Lexile framework suggests a range of text within 500L above and 100L below a student's Lexile measure as the optimal range for growth. Texts in this range are neither too easy nor too difficult, proving the right amount of challenge to help students develop their reading skills. We can also use this to differentiate instruction. Teachers can use Lexile levels to create differentiated reading groups, ensuring that each student works with texts that are appropriate for their reading level. This can help in assigning leveled reading materials for independent reading, flexible small groups, or homework assignments. While this is important, it is equally important that all students are exposed to grade level text, and teachers are scaffolding and supporting students when those texts are outside of their Lexile range. We can also use this to progress monitor. Over time, teachers can track students' Lexile levels to monitor growth. If a student's Lexile measure increases, it indicates that they are becoming more proficient readers. This data can inform instruction decisions and help set reading goals for individual students. We also can use this information for cross-curricular use. Since the Lexile framework is applicable across subjects, teachers in other disciplines like science or social studies can also use Lexile measures to select appropriate text for their students. This ensures that students are not only reading at the right level in language arts, but across all subjects. While Lexile levels are a valuable tool, they have limitations and should only be used as a guide. Let's talk about some of the limitations of this framework. First, it is not a comprehensive measure. Lexile levels focus primarily on word frequency and sentence length. They do not take into account other factors like theme, content appropriate, or complexity of ideas, which can also impact a text's difficulty. Teachers should consider other aspects when selecting a text, especially in literature. Some books have lower Lexile measures, but still present challenges due to abstract themes, nuanced languages, or cultural relevance. Let's take a look at two beloved classic children's stories, Winnie the Pooh and Where the Red Fern Grows. Which would you guess would have a higher Lexile level? Let's take a look at a passage from Winnie the Pooh. Remember, we're looking for word frequency and sentence length. Now let's look at a passage from Where the Red Fern Grows. Which would you guess would have a higher Lexile level? Yes, and while Winnie the Pooh would be more age appropriate for a younger audience, it has a higher Lexile level, where Red Fern Grows has some higher themes, but has fewer complex vocabulary and more basic sentence structure. Another factor that needs to be taken into consideration is student motivation. A student's interest in a topic can significantly impact their reading comprehension. Highly motivated students might be able to handle text above their Lexile level, while less motivated students might struggle with text within their range. Teachers should consider student interest alongside Lexile measures. Whenever we label and level students, it can be harmful. While it's important that a teacher knows their students' reading ability and ranges, the practice of grouping students by ability or tracking students has been shown to exacerbate inequality. Teachers can use Lexile information to guide instruction, but this should not be the only thing that is taken into account for planning reading lessons and matching students with text. Finally, Lexile levels are not diagnostic. If a student takes an assessment and the teacher sees her Lexile level is below the norm, it doesn't give much information about the cause of the struggle. Is this student struggling with decoding or reading fluently? Does the student have a language comprehension deficit? More investigation is required. A teacher needs to then utilize diagnostic assessments to find out where remedial instruction should begin. You can visit Lexile.com for many parent and student and educator resources. Stay tuned for our tour of Lexile.com.
Hi, everyone. Let's go through the Lexile.com website, or this is the Lexile Framework for Reading official hub. And I'm going to just walk through some of the resources that are available now that I've really wrapped my brain around Lexile measures more. Then I'm going to showcase you a couple of tools that I think you'll find really helpful. So I don't even worry about the parent and student or educators. I just come right up to Lexile tools, and I'm going to show you find a book first. So let's say I have a third grader, and I know that third grader, it's the beginning of the year, and they are right on grade level. They're about the 50th percentile. Notice if I put in a student's Lexile measure, then it gives me their range automatically. And this is 100 Lexile points below and 50 above. And then, because we know student interest is so important, we're going to say that this student is really into animals and they love wild animals and they want to have some nonfiction books. So once I put all of that in, then it gives me all of these books that are within their Lexile range, but also within their readability or their reading range. And so this would be a great thing to give them access to when you go to library or something like that, or researching on your online libraries. So let's say that same student comes to me. I know that they are reading at about a 530 Lexile range, but they really want to read Ranger in Time. Or maybe I'm starting a book club and a small group club, and I want to see if that would be a good fit for that student. So I would go back. Maybe I need to come back out. Quick search. I'm going to quick search Ranger in Time and see if these books would be within their range. So notice that even within Ranger of Time, in Time, there are some books that are a higher reading Lexile level, and then there are some that are below. So for this student, I would definitely say, great, this book right here would be a great fit for you. And I know I'm guiding them towards something that they can kind of be more successful with. So that is one of the best find a book features that you can either put in their Lexile range and their interests, and it gives you a list of books, or you can actually use it as kind of a book finder to find the Lexile levels of books that you already have in hand. So I'm going to come back out. Let's go back to our tools. And the next thing I'm going to show you is the grade level charts. So I've been referring to or showed in the PowerPoint the percentiles or the Lexile level grade norms. And this is how I found those norms. So I'm going to do third grade just because it's middle of the road and it is beginning of the year right now. So I'm going to say third grade, beginning of the year. If I have students that are on grade level, they're falling within the 50th percentile, they should be reading a 530. The 90th percentile would be all the way up to 8. But watch what I do over here, and I can toggle and get those individual percentiles. I could also add middle of the year and end of the year, and it only lets you do 2. So let's go from the 25th to the 75th because that kind of gives me that median range. And then I can even push download the PDF. It goes into the difference between student norms and performance standards here. So if you want to learn more about that, and then there is a super helpful quick start guide to just understanding more about these percentages and norms. But very, very helpful because you can drill to exactly what you wanted. If I was a third, fourth, and fifth grade reading interventionist, then I could get kind of get a scope of where all of my students would be in one sheet. So let's go back to our Lexile tools. The next thing I'm going to show you is the text analyzer. So this is really, really cool. And I feel like this has been just life-changing for me to know what material I already have that I need to put in front of students to be able to know its readability. This is not in the free program. You have to upgrade, but it is only $17.99 per year. So I have that. I'm going to go ahead and sign in so we can have access to the text analyzer. And what I'm going to do is go to text analyzer, and then I can type in a portion of text that I'm working with, or maybe type in a portion of a history text that I'm using, whatever I might happen to be working on. So we were just learning about 9/11 this week, and I wanted to know the level of text that I was presenting to my students in fourth grade. So I can upload the text file here as a PDF or a doc, but I could also just, if it's something that I already have as a document, then I can cut, copy, and paste. And then this is what I think is magic. So you push analyze, and it will give you the Lexile range, which is very helpful. So if I have a fourth grader that my 50th percentile fourth grader should be reading about Lexile level 735 within that range. And so if I have a fourth grader that is well below benchmark, they're reading at around 10th percentile, which is about 415, then I know that this text is going to be extremely challenging and I'm going to have to scaffold and offer a lot of support. This is really cool because it shows you the longest sentence, and we know that sentence length indicates complexity. Obviously, compound complex sentences are going to be more difficult or more challenging to read. It also gives indicators. So this passage has harder sentence length and quite a few vocabulary words. And then I want to learn, well, what vocabulary words should I be teaching? And usually it gives me the words. I don't know why no words were identified. Usually it gives me the words that they identified as the harder, less frequent words, and then I can actually pre-teach those. I'm not actually sure why it did that. So that is another tool that I find extremely, extremely helpful. Okay, the next one is, here's the Lexile Hub. Let's just check out all of the things. So if you are working with students that are emergent readers or primary readers and still needing decodable books, making sure that you are only presenting texts that they have been taught explicitly the patterns, you can search for decodable text here. And so you're going to pick whatever your pattern is. I'm an intermediate teacher, so I'm going to say I have students struggling with long vowels, basically, is where I usually have students struggling. And then I have all of these options about texts that have long vowels and are controlled. Not are controlled, but are controlled in the sense that they do not have words that are not decodable. So that is pretty cool. There is another one where you can do decodable passages. And again, if these are only for short, so pretty emergent readers. But if I want to review short vowels and blends and digraphs with my third graders, then I have access to all of these short passages that come with a few comprehension questions as well. So as you can see, there are just a plethora of tools and resources for you to help kids find books, to analyze text, and even to create vocabulary lists. So you can create customized vocabulary lists by grade and by subject. This site is amazing, and I hope you check it out.
In conclusion, Lexile Levels are a powerful tool that can help teachers tailor reading instruction to meet the needs of individual students. By understanding the research behind Lexile measures and their application in the classroom, you can be informed about text selection and instructional strategies. However, Lexile Levels are just one piece of the puzzle, and they should be used in conjunction with knowledgeable, compassionate teachers who understand the complexity of reading instruction.